All right, so this video is on the law of cosines. And the law of cosines is used to solve for sides and angles that are missing in triangles where different pieces of information are given to us as compared with law of sines. So if you recall, law of sines was when they gave you angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle, or angle, side, side. That was all law of sines. So law of cosines is when they give you side, angle, side, and side, side, side. The reason we don't talk about angle, angle, angle being information that they'll give you is that you can make infinitely many triangles if you have three angles that are given, because you could expand it or shrink it or whatever. They'd all be proportional to each other, but it'd be dependent on you coming up with one side and then having the rest of them. So when we look at finding triangles, we're only going to have these specific cases. All right, so for this one, we're going to focus on side, angle, side, and side, side, side. What I mean by side, angle, side is that you're going to be given two sides and the angle that's in between them. And that's how you'll recognize that it's a law of cosines. So there are three formulas that we use for law of cosines, and I would say do not memorize the formulas, memorize the pattern, because that's easier to work with. So we're going to say that if we have a triangle, and we have angle A, angle B, angle C, side A, side B, side C. And the law of cosines is A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cos A. So you'll notice that the side that we're talking about and the angle that we're talking about are kind of on either end. And then it's the other two sides squared minus 2 times the other two sides. So that's kind of the pattern that I always think of this with. So the next one would be B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC. And then we would say cos angle B. C squared is A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cos C. All right, so here are just a few examples. So for our first example, we're going to solve the triangle. And the triangle is going to be HKP. And this is where H equals 27 centimeters, P equals 22 centimeters, and angle K equals 60 degrees. So 60 degrees right there, H is 27, P is 22. So when you look at this, you can see that you have two sides and the angle that is in between them. All right, so if we think about the way that the law of cosines works, if you have two sides that are given, then the only thing that you could solve for is the missing side. All right, and you can see that the missing side and the angle that's in there are right across from each other. And that's what we need to have. We need to have a side and an angle that correspond to each other. Okay, so if I look at this, I'm going to kind of follow the pattern for how these are made. So this side right here is K. So K squared equals one side squared plus the other side squared minus 2 times one side times the other side times cos of 60 degrees. All right, so if we look at this, these are kind of the nice case when you're solving for a missing side because the variable is already isolated. You don't have to like solve it very much. You just have to plug this in and then square root it. So if I look at this problem, I've got 22 squared, 27 squared, minus 2 times 22 times 27 cos of 60. I'm going to make sure real quick to put my calculator in degrees. So I've got all that typed in, and my answer is 619. So I have k squared equals 619. And then I want to square root that, so I'm going to hit second squared, so square root and then second answer. The reason I'm practicing that, doing second answer, is because I want to know how to pull this answer down there, just in case this is a funky decimal, which it normally will be. It's just because we had a nice angle on that one. So again, I did second and then square root, and then I hit second and answer. And what that does is that pulls the last answer that I got into the square root sign. All right, so that means that side K is approximately 24.879 followed by a 7 would be 80. And that's centimeters. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to solve for one of the missing angles. And what we do with law of cosines is when we solve for a missing angle, we always want to go for the biggest angle that we can. And that's how we avoid doing the cosine equivalent of an ambiguous case. Okay, so we always look for the biggest angle that we can. So if I look at this, I can see that 60 degrees corresponds to the side that's 24. That was the medium side, and so this must be the medium angle. That makes this the smallest side, and this will be the smallest angle. And so this one is the largest side, and this one is the largest angle. So that means that the next thing I'm going to be solving for is angle H. So before I move any further, I do need to store this in my calculator. And that's because to find angle H, I'm going to have to use that side. So I'm going to go ahead and store this as K. All right, and so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to say side H, which is 27, side H squared equals 22 squared plus 24.880 squared minus 2 times 22 times 24.880 cos H. All right. So now what I have to do is I have to start moving stuff over so I can get the H all by itself. So in my calculator, I have 27 squared, and I'm going to minus the 22 squared over, and I'm going to minus the K value squared over. So I'm going to minus 22 squared, and I'm going to minus K squared. So I'm just taking this number, subtracting it over, taking that number, subtracting it over. So I'm going to go ahead and just say I moved those over. So that gives me negative 374 equals negative 2 times 22 times 24.880 cos H. So what I have now is I have this represent some decimal that's the coefficient for cos H. So now I just need to divide this number on each side. So divided by negative 2 times 22 times 24.880 divided by negative 2 times 22 times 24.880. So I'm going to say negative 3, well, I guess I could type it. Negative 374 divided by negative 2 times 22 times K. And make sure when you do this, you have to put the whole thing in parentheses. If you don't put the whole thing in parentheses, then your calculator will take this, it will divide it by negative 2, and then it will multiply it by 22 and by K. So we want to divide by all of that stuff. So I have the decimal 0.341, 0.342 actually, equals cos h. And so now I want to get rid of the cos, and I'm going to do that by doing second cos. And then to pull that decimal in there, I'm going to hit second answer. And so that means that my angle for h is 70.023. Angle h is 70.023 degrees. Okay. So to finish solving this triangle, all I have to do now is I have to find the other angle. So I'm just going to do 180 minus this angle minus that angle. So I'll go ahead and I'll store this as h. So I have 180 minus h minus 60. And that means that angle P is 49.977 degrees. And now the triangle is solved. All right, let's go ahead and do another example. So again, we're going to solve the triangle. And here we're going to have triangle DEF. And the information given is that D equals 26 kilometers, E equals 20 kilometers, and F equals 22 kilometers. And so we're going to go ahead and draw this picture. And so when we are given a problem where the information that they have for us is side, 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 then that means that we're using the law of cosines to find two different angles. Well, really, we're going to find all three angles, but the last one will be the easiest to find. So if we're using the law of cosines to find angles, then we have to start with the biggest angle, and then we'll do the medium angle next. So the first angle that we're going to find is angle D because that's across from the biggest side. All right, so I'm going to say biggest side squared equals one side squared plus the other side squared minus 2 times one side times the other side, and then cos of the angle that went with this one, so that's B. All right, and then we'll go ahead and we'll start solving. We're going to move stuff away from D. So I have 26 squared, and I can subtract this over and subtract this over. So I've got 26 squared minus 20 squared minus 22 squared, negative 208, equals negative 2 times 20 times 22 cos D. And so I'll go ahead and divide that on each side. So I have negative 2/8 divided by negative 2 times 20 times 22. So again, you'll see that I'm being very careful to make sure the entire denominator is in parentheses. And so I get 0.236 is approximately cos D. And then I'm going to do second cos, second answer. And so angle D is 76.328 degrees. All right, 76.328. All right, so the next angle that I'm going to solve for is angle F, because that goes with the medium side. So I'm going to say 22 squared equals 20 squared plus 26 squared minus 2 times 20 times 26 times cos F. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take these two and subtract them over. So I have 22 squared minus 20 squared minus 26 squared, and that gives me negative 592. Equals negative 2 times 20 times 26 cos, was that F? Yes, F. And so now to get cos F alone, I can go ahead and divide by these three. And so cos F is 0.569. You guys, I didn't store it. Shucks. Okay, so 0.569. And then I'm going to second cos, second answer. So angle F is 55.303 degrees. All right, I'm going to go ahead and store that as F while I'm thinking about it. Okay, and then I'm going to go back up. Negative 208 has to be divided by that. And then cos inverse. And that was angle D. Yep. Okay, so at this point I have angle D, I have angle F. Angle F was 55.303. And so now to find angle E, I'm going to do 180 minus angle D minus angle F. And so I get 48.369 is angle E. And so there's only two scenarios here, so those are the two scenarios you could work with when you're finding law of cosines. So these ones are pretty straightforward. You're most often going to be frustrated probably by using it to solve for an angle. So obviously we can see that that happens a lot. And you're going to be very careful anytime you're doing side angle side and you're solving for a side first, that you're going to have a decimal that you're plugging in. So somewhere in the problem you're plugging in a value for k, and you're just going to want to watch out for that.